others watched, but you stepped forward. I admire that. The first to cross my threshold deserves my full attention. Shall we begin? Such soft voices and bright eyes. You've all wandered far to find this place. Rest now, little fireflies. Let the tale unfold. Hi, how you doing, Lechi? Hi everyone, I hope you've had a good week, and I hope you are also ready to get into 5 more chapters of this book. I am Scriptsune, your book reading kitsune, and we are gonna be continuing with the Warriors, the New Prophecy series. And of course, it's Friday, so I hope everyone had a great week. Lechi, you said you were lurking for something last time. So I hope whatever you keep working on, that you are doing well in it, especially with school. Look, my other account, yeah, my other account has reached a 15 stream streak. That's funny. Rip ads? What ads? I don't see any ads. And I have my other account on it. What ads? You're having an awful day? What happened? What happened, Lechi? Let's hear about it before we get into this book. You know how curious I am. Don't tell me it's the same thing that everyone else is having an awful day for. If you know what I'm talking about. It's actually why I have the quote up there. Creepy men have been getting worse? Do you not have pepper spray? Better yet, just get some, get a taser, you know? Get a taser. One that goes zap zap. Sent you into a panic. Trust me, I've had some chats with some people and they've been creepy as fuck too. Pepper spray and a taser in your back. Good. As you should. I hope you also know the typical self-defense against men. Yeah. Where you just, you know, you kick them in the sack, you know. That's gonna get them the most. That's always gonna be 100% foolproof. I mean, even people that are on drugs still feel that majority of the time. 99% of the time. But yeah. As long as you're staying safe and you have the means to keep yourself safe. Hey yo, you reached 20? Good job, Lechi. Lechi, Good girl, Leggy. I finally also got some stuff in. I'm not gonna say what, but I do have quite a few of these little pieces in. Stop? No, I can't stop that. Anyway, for anyone that is new, if you have not read the previous series and are just showing up, oh hi Holy, welcome in. The Warriors Cat series was normally in the beginning series where it's the prophecy begins. You had Fireheart, and these cats, they start off with the name and then their name transforms over time depending on their role that they take in the clan. And in the second series, it's actually his enemy's son that is the main character. The reason why this one has been so upsetting is because it's very similar to the issue that I had to deal with in high school, but I'll tell you in more details in DMs another time. Alright, Lechy. That's fine. Thank you for the head pat, Holy. I should totally just use this thing. Hang on. Welcome in, Holy. Good boy. That's never gonna get old. That is 100% never going to get old. And yes, that was a clicker. And that is a running joke from over a year and a half ago, because Holy was saying for me to quote unquote train people. So once I saw that in the thrift store I work at, I had to grab it just to mess with Holy specifically and no one else. Tomorrow going to be a stacked day. Why is tomorrow going to be a stacked day? I already watched the new 3 episodes in Invincible, so I already did that. I already know what happened today with, you know, the actor slash martial artist. And I also worked today. I went to 3 different places, so that was crazy. Minecraft Live, going to drive triple penetrator machine. Oh, you saw my joke in sus chat about that. Oh my god. So there is this Roblox game that I have gotten wholly into, and I haven't been playing it for a while because I've been waiting for the vehicle update, and it looks like a very, very sus triple pen device. Yeah, that's all I can say about it. But damn. Guys, don't forget that you can fish. Just to, you know, stay active. I did put that up there. I did remember to put in the pin that you guys can fish. But I'm considering, I've been thinking about the fish stuff, and I might actually revamp it to where it interacts with the Discord somehow. I'm not really quite sure how to do that yet, but we'll see. I'll have to ask my Discord moderator some ideas about how to integrate fish so that you guys enjoy fishing more. But yeah. So this Friday, we're going to be doing chapter 11 through 15, 5 chapters. And right now we are currently in the part of the story where the main character and also a cat from every other clan, plus extra cats, are about to go on a journey. And we don't know if they're going to be stopped or if they're going to make it, but I'm hoping to see some progress in these 5 chapters. Thank you for the lurk, Lechy. Oh, you have reached 20 as well. Yeah, Lechy also is at 20. Lechy and you are both at a 20 stream streak. Good job, Holy. What a good boy, Holy. I'm sorry, that's never gonna get old. Why are you so bad? Why the face, the angry face. Okay, I'm gonna start reading. I'm done messing with you for now, I promise. For now. Alright. Chapter 11. Where are we going to sleep? Squirrel Paw asked. As soon as Brambleclaw agreed to take her with him on the journey, her hurt and anger had vanished like dawn mist under a hot sun. You got a woman, Ayo. You got a CC. He did not think she had stopped talking for a moment since they left the clearing where Firestar had found them. Quiet, he hissed. If any cat is looking for us, they'll be able to hear you right across the forest. But where? Squirrelpaw persisted, though she did lower her voice. Somewhere not too far from 4 trees, Brambleclaw replied, and would be ready to meet the others at sunrise. Darkness had fallen as he led the way through the undergrowth. Clouds had massed to cover the sky, so that no gleam of star or moon broke through. A cold breeze whispered in the grass, and once again Brambleclaw tasted the sense of approaching leafall. With possible pursuit in mind, he had considered finding shelter near Snake Rocks, which the clan had been ordered to avoid, but the risk of encountering the night-hunting badger was too great. Instead, he decided to make for Thunder Path, hoping that the acrid smells of 2-legged monsters would mask his own scent in squirrel paws. I know a good tree by the Thunder Path, Squirrelpaw suggested. You can get right inside. We could hide there. And have spiders and beetles crawling through our fur all night? Brambleclaw mewed discouragingly. No thanks. Squirrelpaw sniffed. Why do you always know better? Maybe because I'm a warrior? Distracted by the rustling in the undergrowth, the apprentice made no reply. Barely pausing to track her prey, she dived into a clump of bracken, came back a couple of heartbeats later, with the mouse dangling from her jaws. Well done, meowed Brambleclaw. The sight of the fresh kill made him realize how hungry he was. Not long after, he managed to catch a mouse for himself, and the 2 cats paused to eat in quick, wary gulps. Their ears pricked to catch the faintest traces of ThunderClan patrol. But Brambleclaw could hear nothing except the ordinary night sounds of the forest and the nearby roar of monsters on the Thunderpath. Their stench was so strong here that it masked most others. As Brambleclaw had hoped, though, he shrank from the thought of spending the night with that in his nostrils. While they ate, a thin, cold rain began to fall, growing steadily heavier until Brambleclaw's fur was soaked, and he was colder than he could remember feeling it in moons. We need shelter, Squirrelpaw mewed, shivering. She looked small and vulnerable, with her fur plastered darkly to her body. What about finding that tree? Brambleclaw was about to agree when they emerged from the undergrowth at the top of the grassy bank, and he found himself looking down at the Thunderpath. A 2-legged monster roared past, its glaring eyes cutting shafts of yellow brightness through the night. Before it swept by, the light showed Brambleclaw looming dark shape, the biggest monster he had ever seen, squatting on the verge of the Thunderpath. The reek of blood of it flooded his senses. Hang on, I was sticking to my chair. exclaimed Squirrelpaw, brushing close beside him. I don't know, Brambleclaw admitted. I've never seen anything like it before. Stay here while I take a look. Cautiously, he padded forward until he stood a couple of fox lengths away from the monster. Was it dead? He wondered. And was that why its two legs had abandoned it here? Or was it crouching, watching, waiting to spring as he would spring on a helpless mouse? Look, you get underneath it, Squirrelpaw pointed out, trotting up to join him. Of course, she had not obeyed his order to wait at the top of the bank. You could shelter from the rain. There was just enough light for Brambleclaw to make out a darker gap between the monster's belly and the ground. His fur bristled at the thought of crawling into the narrow space. But he hadn't want to seem a coward in front of Squirrelpaw. And her suggestion was a good one. The overwhelming scent would certainly hide them from any pursuers. Okay, he meowed. But let me... He broke off as Squirrelpaw bounded forwards, flattened herself to the ground, and wriggled underneath the monster. Go first, Brambleclaw finished, resigned, following her. A faint dawn light seeping under the monster's belly roused Brambleclaw the next morning. Squirrelpaw was curled beside him. For a heartbeat, he couldn't remember why she was sleeping in his den instead of her own. Then, the acrid reek of the monster and a continuous roar from the thunderpath close by reminded him where he was and why. This was the morning when the journey would really begin. But instead of excitement, he felt only uncertainty dragging at his paws, along with the dismal thought that he had as good as exiled himself from his clan by disappearing without his leader's permission. Brambleclaw crept out from beneath the monster and lifted his head to taste the air. The grass was still wet from the previous night's rain, and the bushes at the top of the bank were heavy with drops of water. Mist curled through the trees in the gray dawn. There was no sound or scent of other cats. Turning back to the monster, he called to Squirrelpaw. Wake up! It's time we're on our way to 4 Trees. He was beginning to think he would have to slide back under the monster's belly to rouse the apprentice when she crawled out, blinking. I'm starving, she complained. We have time to catch prey on the way, Brambleclaw told her. But we must get moving. Others will be waiting. Okay, Squirrelpaw raced up the bank and headed towards 4 Trees. Following the line of the thunderpath, Brambleclaw caught up to her, and for a time the two cats loped along side by side. The mist cleared and a golden light gathered on the horizon where the sun would rise. Birds began to sing in the branches overhead. Once she was properly awake, Squirrelpaw seemed to forget about stopping to hunt. She hurried on, paying no attention to anything around her. Brambleclaw was torn between wanting to get to 4 Trees as soon as possible and staying alert for possible trouble. When he heard rustling in the bushes behind them, he halted. Ears flicking up and jaws parted to detect scent of the pursuer. Squirrelpaw, he hissed. Get out of sight! But Squirrelpaw whirled around a heartbeat before he spoke and stood staring in the direction of the sound, her green eyes wide. At the same moment, Brambleclaw picked up the strong, familiar scent of ThunderClan cat. Then the branches of a nearby bush quivered and parted to reveal Leafpaw. The two sisters stood rigid for a moment, their gazes locked together. Then Leafpaw padded forward and set down the packet of herbs she was carrying at Squirrelpaw's feet. I brought you some traveling herbs, she murmured. You're going to need them. Brambleclaw stared from her to Squirrelpaw. I thought you said you hadn't told any cat. His voice was loud with outrage. How does she know? You've been lying to me. I have not, Squirrelpaw spat. No, she hasn't. Leafpaw's gentler voice added. But she didn't need to tell me anything. I just knew. That's all. Brambleclaw shook himself. You mean, you know everything? He asked. About the dreams and the journey to the sun-drowned place. Leafpaw turned his serious gaze on him, and he saw unhappiness and bewilderment in the depths of her eyes. No, she mewed. Only that Squirrelpaw is going away. She hesitated, closing her eyes briefly. And there would be great danger. A pang of pity for her stabbed through Brambleclaw, sharp as a thorn. But he could not afford to give in to it. He had to know what Leafpaw had done with her knowledge. Who else knows? He demanded roughly. Have you told your father? No. The flash of anger in Leafpaw's eyes suddenly made her look very much like her sister. I wouldn't tell on Squirrelpaw, not even to Firestar. She wouldn't, Brambleclaw, Squirrelpaw added. Brambleclaw nodded slowly. I almost wish I had, Leafpaw went on, bitterness in her voice. Perhaps I could have stopped it all, and kept you here. Squirrelpaw, do you really have to go? I must. This is the most exciting thing that has ever happened to me. Don't you see? It's like a man from StarClan. So it's not like we're going against the warrior code. She began pouring out to Leafpaw the whole story of Brambleclaw's dreams, and the meeting with the cats from the other clans. Leafpaw listened, her eyes widening in dismay. Brambleclaw fidgeted from paw to paw, acutely aware of the passing time as the daylight strengthened. But you don't need to go, Leafpaw wailed when Squirrelpaw had finished. You haven't been chosen. Well, I'm not going back. I can't do anything right, as far as Firestar is concerned. Do you know he even told me I might not be fit to be a warrior? I'll show him whether I'm fit or not. Brambleclaw glanced at Leafpaw. She knew as well as he how useless it was to argue with Squirrelpaw. When she had made up her mind, there was something else, too. In Leafpaw's amber eyes, a hint of trouble, if she knew more than she was telling. But you might not come back. Leafpaw's voice shook, and Brambleclaw was reminded even more forcibly that as well as a medicine cat, Leafpaw was Squirrelpaw's sister. What will I do without you? I'll be okay, Leafpaw. Brambleclaw was amazed at the gentleness of Squirrelpaw's voice, and the way that she pressed her muzzle comfortingly against her sister's side. I've got to go. You do see that, don't you? Leafpaw nodded. And you won't tell anyone where we've gone, Squirrelpaw pressed. I don't know where you're going, and neither do you, Leafpaw pointed out. But no, I won't say anything. Just remember that Firestar does love you. He has things on his mind that you know nothing about. She drew in a shaky breath. Now, take the herbs and go. Squirrelpaw dabbed at the packet of herbs, dividing them between herself and Brambleclaw. As they gulped down the bitter-tasting leaves, Leafpaw looked on, her eyes huge and somber. Even if you don't have a medicine cat with you, you can still find herbs as you go along. Don't forget marigold for wounds, she meowed rapidly, and tansy for coughs. Oh, and juniper berries for bellyache. And borage leaves are best for fever if you can find any. She sounded as if she were trying to pass on the whole of her training in the few moments she had left. We won't forget, Squirrelpaw promised. She finished the last mouthful of herbs and swiped her tongue around her mouth. Come on, Brambleclaw. Goodbye, Leafpaw, Brambleclaw mewed. You and the rest of the clan. Take care. If trouble is really coming to the forest, we might not be back in time to help you fight it. That is in the paws of StarClan, Leafpaw agreed sadly. I'll do my best to be ready. I promise. And don't worry about Squirrelpaw, Brambleclaw added. I'll look after her. And I'll look after him, Squirrelpaw flashed him a challenging look, before padding up to her sister and touching noses with her. We will come back, she murmured. Leafpaw dipped her head, sadness clouding her eyes. As Brambleclaw headed once again for 4 trees, he glanced back to see her watching them, a motionless light brown figure against the ferns. As he raised his tail in a gesture of farewell, she turned swiftly, and the undergrowth swallowed her up. That was the end of chapter 11. Chapter 12. Leafpaw caught a vole on her way back to the camp, and slipped down the ravine with it clamped in her jaws, hoping that any cat who saw her would think that she had been out on an early hunting expedition. Her mind was still whirling with her sister's departure, and how the prophecies of StarClan seemed to be gathering around Squirrelpaw and Brambleclaw like mist clinging to the branches of a gorse bush. As she emerged into the clearing, she heard Mousefar's voice raised loudly. That Brambleclaw is a lazy lump. It's well past sunrise and he isn't up yet. I want him for a hunting patrol. I'll wake him. Brightheart, who was sitting with Mousefur near the nettle patch, got up and went into the warrior's den. Leafpaw felt a cold knot in her belly at the thought of what would happen when the rest of ThunderClan discovered that Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw had vanished. At that moment, Dustpelt appeared from the nursery and padded over to the apprentice's den, where Whitepaw and Truepaw were sunning themselves. Hi, the brown warrior greeted them. Have you seen Squirrelpaw? She's not ill, is she? She's usually raring to go by now, before I've even had time for a piece of fresh kill. Whitepaw and Truepaw exchanged a glance. We haven't seen her, Whitepaw mewed. She didn't sleep in the den last night. Leafpaw saw Dustpelt roll his eyes. What is she up to now? Brightheart pushed away out of the warrior's den and bounded across to Mousefur. Leafpaw trotted across to the fresh kill pile with her roll so that she could hear what they were saying. Brambleclaw's not there, Brightheart reported. What? Mousefur's tail twitched in surprise. Where is he then? Brightheart shrugged. Must have gone hunting on his own. Never mind, Mousefur. Cloudterror and I will come with you. Fine, Mousefur shrugged. And as soon as Cloudterror emerged from the den, blinking sleep out of his eyes, she roused Spiderpaw and all 4 cats left the camp. Meanwhile, Dustpelt was heading for the fresh kill pile, irritably calling on StarClan to tell him how he was supposed to mentor an apprentice as she was never where she was meant to be. If you see your sister, he growled to Leafpaw, tell her I'm in the nursery, and she'd better have a good excuse for going off on her own again. He snatched up a starling and headed back to Ferncloud. Leafpaw watched him go before heading for the fern tunnel that led to the medicine cat's den. She was relieved that Dustpelt had not stopped to question her about Squirrelpaw, but she knew that as time went on and the two cats did not return, there would certainly be questions, lots of them, and she had no idea how at all to answer. By midday, gossip was beginning to fly around the camp. On her way through the main clearing to fetch fresh kill for Cinderpelt, Leafpaw overheard Firestar ordering patrols to keep an eye open for the two missing cats. So Brambleclaw is padding after Squirrelpaw, is he? Firetail remarked, his eyes gleaming with amusement. Well, she's a very attractive young cat. I'll say that for her. I can't think of what they're up to. Firestar sounded more annoyed than worried. I'll have something to say to the both of them when I come back. Leafpaw crouched down, pretending to be choosing the best piece of prey, while the warriors dispersed, leaving her father and mother alone together. You know, Sandstorm meowed to Firestar, Graystripe told me what happened last night, when he found them hunting alone. It sounds as if Squirrelpaw and Brambleclaw haven't been back since. From what Graystripe said about the way you spoke to them, I'm not surprised they want to get away for a while. Surely I didn't upset them that much. Firestar sounded anxious. Not enough to leave the camp. Sandstorm gave him a direct look from wide green eyes just like Squirrelpaw's. I've told you over and over again that you don't get anywhere with Squirrelpaw by criticizing her and ordering her around. Should do the opposite just to be difficult. I know. Firestar let out a heavy sigh. It's just this prophecy. Fire and Tiger together. In trouble for the forest. I thought after we dealt with BloodClan, the clans would be at peace. We've had many moons of peace. Sandstorm padded up to Firestar and pressed her muzzle against his cheek. All thanks to you, and if there is more trouble to come, it's not your fault. I've been thinking about that omen, she went on, sitting down with a quick glance around to make sure none of the warriors were in earshot. Leafpaw gave a guilty start, wondering if she should creep out of the shadows on the far side of the pile of fresh kill. But if her mother knew she was there, she paid no attention to her after all. Leafpaw already knew about the StarClan message. It mentions fire and Tiger and trouble, Sandstorm continued. But it doesn't say that fire and Tiger will cause the trouble, does it? Leafpaw saw a shiver run right through Firestar's body, rippling his flame-colored fur. You're right, he murmured. The prophecy might mean they'll save us from trouble. It might. Firestar straightened up, suddenly looking very young. Then it's even more important to get them back, he burst out. I'll lead a patrol myself. I'll come with you, mewed Sandstorm, raising her voice. She added, Leafpaw, you've had time to sniff every piece of fresh kill in that pile. Cinderpelt will be waiting, and remember that you've promised not to say anything to any cat about this message from StarClan. Yes, Sandstorm. Leafpaw grabbed a bowl and headed back to the medicine cat's den. She wondered if she ought to confess what her sister had told her about the journey, but she had promised Squirrelpaw to keep silent too. The weight of the two secret prophecies weighed on her fur like raindrops. She did not know how she had managed to keep both her promises and stay faithful to her vows as a medicine cat to act only for the good of the clan, all at the same time. For the rest of that day, Cinderpelt kept Leafpaw busy going over their stocks of herbs, sorting out what needed to be replenished before Leafall set in for good. The sun was going down and the air was growing cold, with the scent of damp leaves, when they heard the noise of a cat brushing through the fern tunnel. "It's Firestar," Cinderpelt meowed, glancing out of the mouth of the den. "You carry on with that. I'll see what he wants." Leafpaw was thankful to stay hidden in the hollow rock and count juniper berries. She caught a glimpse of her father in the clearing outside, the sun turning his pelt to a brilliant flame, and shrank further back so that he would not see her. There's no sign of them anywhere. Firestar sounded weary. "I tried to follow their scent, but the rain last night must have washed it away. They could be anywhere. Cinderpelt, what do you think I should do?" "I don't see what else you can do, except stop worrying." Cinderpelt's voice was brisk but sympathetic. "I remember a couple of apprentices who were always sneaking off for one reason or another. No harm ever came to them. Me and Graystripe, that was different. Squirrelpaw has a young warrior with her. Brownclaw will look after her." There was a short silence. Leafpaw risked another glance out of the opening in the rock to see her father sitting with his head bowed. He looked utterly defeated, and Leafpaw's heart twisted in pity. She wanted to go and comfort him, but there was no comfort she could give without breaking her word. "It's my fault." Firestar went on in a low, shaking voice. "I should have never have said what I did. If they don't come back, I'll never forgive myself." "Of course they'll come back. The forest is safe at the moment. Wherever they are, they will be well fed and sheltered." "Maybe." Firestar didn't sound convinced. Without saying any more, he got up and disappeared from the fern tunnel. When he had gone, Cinderpelt came back into the cave. "Leafpaw," she meowed, "do you know where your sister is now?" Leafpaw chased with her paw after a juniper berry that had rolled across the floor, not wanting to meet her mentor's gaze. When she thought about Squirrelpaw, she had a sensation of warmth and safety, and the presence of other cats. She guessed they were at Ravenpaw's barn, but she couldn't be sure. She answered truthfully, "No, Cinderpelt, I don't know where she is." Leafpaw was aware of Cinderpelt's gaze, and she looked up into her mentor's blue eyes to see no anger there, only deep pools of wisdom and understanding. "If you did know, you would tell me, wouldn't you? The medicine cat's loyalties are not the same as other cats. But in the end, we are all loyal to StarClan, and the 4 clans in this forest." Leafpaw nodded, and to her relief, her mentor turned away and started to examine their stalks of marigold leaves. "I didn't lie to her," Leafpaw told herself miserably. But it didn't help. StarClan prophecy or not, she knew the warrior code as well as any clan cat. One of the worst things an apprentice could do was lie to her mentor. And even though the words she had spoken had been the exact truth, Leafpaw felt desperately guilty. "Oh, Squirrelpaw," she protested. "Why did you have to go?" That was the end of chapter 12. So as it's been 2 chapters, I'm going to take a short break and we'll continue on to chapter 13. So I will be right back. I'm back. Alright, let's go on ahead and jump into chapter 13. Chapter 13. This isn't the quickest way to ford trees, Squirrelpaw protested. I'm already messing up. God damn it. Let me retake that. This isn't the quickest way to ford trees, Squirrelpaw protested when Brambleclaw paused on the edge of the bramble thicket. She flicked her tail. We should be going that way. Fine, Brambleclaw sighed. Squirrelpaw had been unusually quiet after saying goodbye to her sister. But unfortunately, the silence hadn't lasted. Go that way if you feel like a swim. This way, the stream is narrower, and there's a rock we can use to jump across. Oh, okay. Squirrelpaw seemed disconcerted for a moment, but then she shrugged and raced through the trees at Brambleclaw's side. They crossed the stream in a couple of bounds and headed up the last slope that led to poor trees. Brambleclaw realized that the whole disk of the sun had risen above the horizon by the time they reached the edge of the hollow. He paused, his tail to hold back Squirrelpaw so that she wouldn't go dashing into the clearing before they knew what they would find there. Shrinking in the air, he could taste the mingled scents of the three other clans. And when he looked down the slope, he saw Tawnypelt, Feathertail, and Stormfur sitting at the base of the great rock, while Crowpaw paced restlessly up and down in front of them. At last! Tawnypelt sprang to her paws as Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw burst out of the bushes at the foot of the slope. We thought you weren't coming. What's she doing here? Crowpaw demanded, glaring at Squirrelpaw. Squirrelpaw returned the glare, her neck fur bristling angrily. I can speak for myself, thanks. I'm coming with you. What? Tawnypelt padded up to her brother's side. Brambleclaw, have you lost your mind? You can't bring in an apprentice. This is going to be dangerous. Before Brambleclaw could reply, Squirrelpaw hissed, He's an apprentice, and flicked her tail at Crowpaw. I was chosen by StarClan, Crowpaw pointed out immediately. You weren't. Seeming to think that settled it, he sat down and started to wash his ears. He's not chosen either, Squirrelpaw protested, transferring the glare to Stormfur. Don't tell me he's here just to say goodbye to his sister. The two RiverClan cats said nothing, just exchanged a worried glance. She's coming, and that's that. Brambleclaw's patience was rapidly running out. At this rate, the mission would fall apart in bickering and bad temper before it had even started. Now let's get going. Don't order me around, Crowpaw snapped. No, he's right, Tawnypelt sighed. If we can't stop Squirrelpaw coming. You can't, Squirrelpaw put in. Then we might as well get moving and make the best of it. To Brambleclaw's relief, even Crowpaw seemed to see the sense in that. He got to his paws, turned his back on Squirrelpaw as if she didn't exist. Pity you can't leave your clan without dragging along a burr in your pelt, he jeered at Brambleclaw. The two RiverClan cats rose too, and padded up to join the group. Don't worry, Feathertail murmured, touching Squirrelpaw's shoulder briefly with her muzzle. We're all feeling a bit nervous. It'll be better once we're on our way. Squirrelpaw's eyes flashed, as if she were about to make a sharp reply. But meeting Feathertail's gentle gaze, she clearly thought better of it, and dipped her head. Her neck fur began lying flat again. As if obeying an unspoken command, all 6 cats padded through the bushes to the top of the slope, emerging at the edge of WindClan territory. When Brambleclaw looked out on the moorland slopes, the tough, springy grass ruffled by the wind like the fur of a huge animal. His heart pounded until he thought it would burst right out of his chest. This was the moment he was waiting for. Ever since Bluestar had spoken to him in his dream, the time of the new prophecy was here. The journey had begun. But as he took his first steps across the moor, he was pierced by a sharp pang of regret for everything he was leaving behind. The familiar forest, his place in the clan, his friends. From now on, everything would be different. Can he really live by the warrior code outside of the forest? Brambleclaw wondered, glancing back to the dark line of the trees. He added silently, "Will any of us see our clans again?" Brambleclaw crouched in the shelter of the hedge and looked down at the clustered buildings of their two-leg farm. Behind him, the other cats shifted restlessly. "What are we waiting for?" Crowpaw demanded. "That's the barn where Ravenpaw and Barley live," Brambleclaw replied, indicating with his tail. "Yes, I know," meowed the Wind Clan apprentice. "Mudclaw took me there when I made my apprentice journey to Highstones. We're not stopping there now, are we?" "I think perhaps we should." Brambleclaw was careful not to sound as if he were giving the touchy apprentice an order. "Ravenpaw knows about the sun-drowned place. He might be able to tell us something useful." "And his barn is crawling with mice," Tiny Pelt swiped her tongue around her whiskers. "We could do worse than spend the night there," Brambleclaw agreed. "A couple of good meals will help to build our strength. But we could easily make Highstones before dark if we keep going," Crowpaw pointed out. Brambleclaw suspected, uncharitably, that the Wind Clan apprentice was arguing just for the sake of it. "I still think it might be best if we stay here for the night," he meowed. "This way we'll get to Highstones early next morning, with most of the day to get a good start in unknown territory." "Would you rather sleep on bare stone with no prey?" Stormfur murmured. "Or warm and comfortable with a full stomach?" "I vote for Barley's barn." "Me too," Squirrelpaw mewed. "You don't get a vote," Crowpaw retorted. Squirrelpaw refused to be crushed, green eyes gleaming with anticipation. She sprang to her paws. "Let's go." "No, wait." Feathertail pushed in front of the eager apprentice, a heartbeat before Brambleclaw. "There are rats around here. We have to be careful." "Dogs, too," Tiny Pelt added. "Oh, okay." Brambleclaw remembered that Squirrelpaw hadn't yet made the journey that all apprentices took to Highstones before they could be made into warriors. In fact, this must be the first time she had left ThunderClan territory beyond 4 trees. Privately, he admitted that she had done well so far, crossing Wind Clan territory without a fuss and being sensible about avoiding Wind Clan patrols so that Crowpaw's departure could remain secret. Perhaps she would cope better than the first feared, with the longer path that lay ahead of them. Brambleclaw emerged from the hedge and led the way past the farm building toward the barn. Wow. Of course. Well, SiriBot, thank you for banning another spam bot. You have no clue how many bots have been banned by SiriBot. He froze briefly when he heard the barking of a dog, but it sounded distant, and the scent that came to him was faint. "Get on, if we're going," Crowpaw muttered at his shoulder. The barn was some away from the main 2-leg nest. There were holes in the roof, and the door sagged on its supports. Brambleclaw approached warily and sniffed at the gap at the bottom of the door, The scent of mouse flooded his senses. His mouth started to water, and he had to concentrate hard to distinguish the cat scent that was almost drowned out. A familiar voice spoke from just inside. "I smell ThunderClan. Come in and welcome." It was Ravenpaw. Brambleclaw slid through the gap to see the sleek black loner standing just in front of him. Barley, the black and white cat who shared the barn with him, was crouched a pace or two behind, his eyes widening uneasily as Brambleclaw's companion slipped in as well. Brambleclaw realized that Barley had probably not seen so many cats since he came to the forest to help the clans fight against the Blood Clan 4 seasons ago. "I took your advice, Ravenpaw," Brambleclaw meowed. "I think StarClan sent me the dream because they want me to travel to the Sundrown place. These are the cats that StarClan has chosen to go as well." "Or some of us are," Crowpaw muttered disagreeably. Brambleclaw ignored him and introduced the rest of the cats to Ravenpaw and Barley. The older loner merely dipped his head in greeting and slid away into the shadowy depths of the barn. "Don't mind Barley," Ravenpaw meowed. "It's not often we have so many visitors all at once. So this is Squirrelpaw," he went on, touching noses to greet the young apprentice. "Firestar's daughter. I've seen you before, when you were a kid in the nursery with Sandstorm. But you won't remember that. I said that when you look just like your father, and now I see I was right." Squirrelpaw scuffled her paws in embarrassment. Brambleclaw guessed she was lost for words to meet this cat who had played such a large part in the history of her clan. "What does Firestar think about the journey?" Ravenpaw asked Brambleclaw. "I'm surprised he let Squirrelpaw go so far when she isn't a warrior yet." Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw exchanged an uneasy glance. "It wasn't quite like that," Brambleclaw admitted. "We left without telling him." Ravenpaw's eyes widened with shock, and for a heartbeat, Brambleclaw wondered if he would send them away again. But Ravenpaw only shook his head. "I'm sorry to hear that. You couldn't tell him what's going on," he meowed. "Perhaps you'll tell me more when you've eaten. Are you all hungry?" "Starving!" Squirrelpaw exclaimed. A meow of laughter escaped from Ravenpaw. "Feel free to hunt," he invited them. "There are plenty of mice." A short time later, Brambleclaw was curled up comfortably in the straw, his stomach stuffed full of mice that had almost lined up to leap into his mouth. If Ravenpaw and Barley ate like this every day, it was no wonder they looked so strong and healthy. His companions were sprawled around him, equally full and growing sleepy as the sun went down, sending shafts of red light through the holes in the barn roof. All around they could hear scuffling noises and faint squeaking in the straw, as if their hunt had made no difference at all in the number of prey. "If you don't mind, we'll sleep here tonight and leave first thing in the morning," Brambleclaw meowed. Ravenpaw nodded. "I'll come with you as far as Highstones." Before Brambleclaw could protest that there was no need, he went on. "There are even more two lakes than before around the Thunderpath. I've been keeping an eye on them, so I know the safest ways to go." Brambleclaw thanked him, only to feel Crowpaw shift closer to him and mutter into his ear, "Can we trust him?" Ravenpaw's ear twitched. He had obviously heard the remark. Brambleclaw thought he was going to sink through the floor with embarrassment, and Squirrelpaw lifted her head to aim a furious hiss at Crowpaw. "Don't be angry with him," Ravenpaw meowed. "That's good thinking, Crowpaw. Thinking like a warrior. In fact, where you're going, you must trust nothing and no cat without very good reason." Crowpaw ducked his head, looking pleased at the loner's praise. "But you can trust me," Ravenpaw continued. "I may not be able to do much to help with the rest of your journey, but at least I can see you to Highstone safely." Wind struck Brambleclaw squarely in the face. flattening his pelt to his sides and almost carrying him off his paws. When he unsheathed his claws to steady himself, he scraped against the bare rock. He and his companions were standing on the summit of High Stones, gazing out over the endless unknown territories. They had set out in the first faint light of dawn and reached the stony slopes well before sun-high, led swiftly by Ravenpaw. He stood beside Brambleclaw now, his ears pricked into the distance. "You avoid that tangle of thunderpaths," he meowed, pointing with his tail to the thick gray smudge in the landscape. "Just as well. That's the place where WindClan took refuge when Brokenstar drove them out. It's full of rats and carrion." "I know that," Squirrelpaw put in. "Greystripe told me how he and Firestar went to fetch WindClan back." "There are many smaller thunderbaths to cross," Ravenpaw went on, "and two-legged nests to avoid. I've traveled that way now and again. Not far, but far enough to know that it's not a place for warriors." Squirrelpaw shot a nervous glance at Ravenpaw. "Is there no more forest at all?" she asked. "Not that I saw." "Don't worry," Brambleclaw meowed reassuringly. "I'll look after you." To his surprise, she whirled on him, the light of fury in her green eyes. "How many times do I have to tell you? I don't need looking after," she spat. "If you're going to behave like Firestar all the way to the Sundrown place, I might as well have stayed home." "Oh, don't we wish," Crowpaw murmured, rolling his eyes. Tinypelt gave Squirrelpaw a curious glance. "Are you going to let an apprentice talk to you like that?" she asked her brother. Brambleclaw shrugged. "You try stomping her." His sister's ears twitched. "ThunderClan!" Feathertail exchanged a glance with Stormfur, and then padded up to Squirrelpaw's side. "I'm nervous too," she admitted. "I get shivers all along my spine when I think of being so close to all those two legs. But StarClan would bring us through." Squirrelpaw nodded, though her eyes were still troubled. If you've all quite finished," Crowpaw mewed loudly, "it's time we were moving." "Okay." Brambleclaw turned to Ravenpaw. "Thank you for everything," he meowed. "It makes a difference that you understand why we are doing this." The loner dipped his head. "Think nothing of it. Good luck, all of you. And may StarClan light your path." He stood aside, and one by one, the 6 cats began to pick their way down the far slope of the hill. The rising sun cast long blue shadows in front of them as they took first steps on the longest journey of their lives. That is the end of Chapter 13. Chapter 14. Brambleclaw heaved a sigh of relief to come down from the high stones and feel grass under his paws again. They were alone now, a tiny band of cats in a vast, unknown territory. Ravenpaw had pointed out a path across fields divided by sharp, shiny two-leg fences, and there were many scents of two-legs and dogs, though none of them were fresh. Woolly-faced sheep stared at the traveling cats as they slipped past, their heads low, their ears flat, uncomfortable at being out in the open. "You'd think they'd never seen a cat before," Stormfur grunted. "Maybe they haven't," Tinypelt replied. "There's no real reason for cats to come here. I haven't had so much as a sniff of prey since we left the barn." "Well, I've never seen a sheep before," Squirrelpaw pointed out. She padded a little closer to the nearest one, and Brambleclaw obtrusively moved up behind her. As far as he knew, sheep were not dangerous, but he was taking no chances. Squirrelpaw paused a tail length away, took a sniff, and wrinkled her nose. "Yuck! They might look like fluffy clouds on legs, but they smell horrible." Tinypelt yawned. "Can we get on with the love of StarClan? I wonder why StarClan are sending us to the Sundrown place," Feathertail meowed, swerving to avoid a grass-cropping sheep that was too close for comfort. Why couldn't they have told us what we need to know back in the forest? And why do we have to hear the message at midnight? Crowpaw snorted.
Why are
Who
you
knows?
so sus?
He
With
narrowed his
your
eyes and
sussiness,
stared at
я
Brown
the
Claw.
little baka.
Maybe the ThunderClan warrior can tell us. After all, he's the only one of us who has seen this place, or so he says. Hi, welcome in. How you doing? And thank you for the follow. I am Scriptsune, the book reading kitsune. We are currently reading Warriors, the second series, which is the New Prophecy series. And we are starting on chapter 14. We are going to chapter 15 for this stream. If you would like, we have fish, so you can use exclamation mark fish. I guess, I don't know. I mean, I've been bad and I've been torturing one of my regulars by using this. So I guess I could be bad. Anyway. Feel free to chat with me or whatever. Enjoy your time here. I do chat while also reading. I am capable of switching back and forth. It's kind of wholesome seeing your model. I know, and it's great. It's a fox. It's a fox. Look at it. It's a fox. I got the tail and everything. Relaxing, yeah. It's a super soft, fluffy fox. I actually did the art and rigged this fox myself, so I'm pretty proud of it, you know. I do have some toggles, like, I don't really use them that often though. I just find it amusing. Yes, yes. I will forever be proud of this. You have no clue the pain I went through trying to rig the snout, because it has a lot of layers and a lot of teeth. Because I tried to make it accurate. It's crazy. So I stream every Friday, and it's usually book chapters, so I do like 5 chapters every Friday. But if I'm like not feeling well, I will do like a hand cam stream with little micro building blocks. Girl, a model like this would cost $1,000+ including the yeah, I did it myself. This isn't the only model that I've done for myself. This is actually my secondary channel. My main channel is on hiatus, and I plan on like redoing my main channel, but yeah. I am considering making myself a humanoid model at some point for this channel. But I need to think of what it would look like, you know? It's gotta be pretty. It's gotta be elegant. Something like that. But yes, if you are new to this series, the Warrior series, it's Warrior Cats, if you don't know. What was my main channel about? Gaming, mostly. I got kind of into ASMR because I was thinking about doing ASMR for a while, and it was actually me. I kind of went for it after I kind of got an ASMR friend, and I'm like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna try it out. And then I ended up making this channel to separate it from my other one. And I just kind of been reading my books. I have the physical copy, so you actually hear me doing the page turning and everything else. What kind of games? Also, what kind of ASMR? I mostly just do book reading here. That's mostly what I do here, and they're with physical copies, so you'll hear me page turn and all that. I'm not really much into the whispering, so it's like a lot of I guess you could say chatting slash nonsense. Yes, I love the book turning. I do. I do. Now, where was I? Let's see. I was right here. Crowpaw snorted. Who knows? He narrowed his eyes and stared at Brown McClaw. Maybe the ThunderClan warrior can tell us. After all, he's the only one of us who has seen this place, or so he says. Bedtime story? Yeah. It's like the perfect timing, because I usually do it at like 8 p.m. Brambleclaw gritted his teeth. You know as much as I do, he meowed. We have just to trust StarClan that it will all come clear in the end. Easy enough for you to say, Crowpaw retorted. Leave him alone. To Brambleclaw's amazement, Squirrelpaw darted forward and planted itself in front of the WindClan apprentice. Brambleclaw didn't ask for the second dream. It's not his fault that StarClan chose him. And what do you know about it? Crowpaw growled. In WindClan, apprentices know when to keep their mouths shut. Midnight for you? Why you said bedtime? Well, some people go to sleep earlier too. I just live on the West Coast, so I'm in PST time, Pacific Standard Time. So I usually start at like 8 p.m. and that typically seems to be an okay like nighttime ASMR time. Oh, so you'll be quiet from now on, Squirrelpaw mewed cheekily. Good. Your EST? Yeah, that explains why it's because that's like a 4-hour difference. 3-hour difference right now. You know, time change. It's usually 3 to 4. With his top lip drawn back in a snarl, Crowpaw stalked around her and went on. Brambleclaw patted across to his clanmate. Thanks for backing me up there, he murmured. Squirrelpaw's eyes flashed angrily at him. I'm not doing it for you, she snapped. I'm just not letting that stupid furball think WindClan is so much better than ThunderClan. She dashed off with an annoying hiss, past Feathertail and Stormfur, who had stopped to watch. Don't get too far ahead, Brambleclaw called after her, but she ignored him. As he set off in pursuit, Brambleclaw was uncomfortably aware that none of the other cats tried to defend him, not even Tawnypelt. They must all be full of doubts about his vision of the sun-drowned place. And why they had to go there, just like Feathertail. A sense of responsibility was settling more heavily on Brambleclaw with every step he took. And he knew that if any of his companions were injured or even killed on the journey, it would be his fault. Perhaps StarClan had got it wrong this time. Perhaps in the end, not even the faith and courage of warriors would bring enough. I actually messed that up. Hang on a second. I'm just gonna take a drink and restart it. Perhaps the end, not even faith and courage of warriors would be enough to bring them through safely. But yeah, typically, my book readings can take from 2 to 3 hours. So I find that to be an okay amount of time, considering I have like certain impairments when it comes to, well, it's very odd to say, but I can't burp. So like if I swallow a whole lot of air, I just start gurgling. So I can only go for so long. It's kind of an odd thing to say, but it's the truth. Not long after sun high, they came to their first thunder path. It was narrower than the one they were used to and curved so that they could not see monsters approaching until the last moment. On the opposite side, a tall hedge stretched as far as they could see in both directions. Crowpaw approached cautiously and sniffed the hard black edge of the thunder path. Ugh, he exclaimed, wrinkling his nose. It's foul stuff. Why do two legs spread it all over the place? Their monsters travel on it, Stormfur told him. I know that, Crowpaw snapped. The monsters stink, too. Stormfur shrugged. That's two legs for you. Are we going to sit here until the sunset discussing the habits of two legs? Tawnypelt interrupted. Where are we going to cross the thunder path? Brambleclaw crouched on the grass verge, ears pricked to catch the sound of approaching monsters. When I say now, run, he told Squirrelpaw, who was crouching beside him. You'll be fine. Squirrelpaw didn't look at him. She had been in a bad mood ever since her earlier quarrel with Crowpaw. "I'm not scared, you know," she hissed. "Then you should be," Tawny Pelt grunted from her other side. "Didn't you listen to what we told you when we crossed the Thunderpath near Highstones? Get this straight. They're dangerous even for experienced warriors. Cats have died on them." Squirrelpaw glanced up at her and nodded, her green eyes huge. "Good," mewed the Shadowclan warrior. "So listen to Brambleclaw, and when he tells you to go, run like you've never run before." "Before we cross," Brambleclaw raised his voice so all the cats could hear him, "I think we should decide what we are going to do on the other side. We can't see beyond that hedge, and I can't pick up any sense for the reek of the Thunderpath." Stormfur raised his head and opened his jaws to taste the air. "Nor can I," he agreed. "I suggest we cross, go straight through the hedge and meet up on the other side. If there's anything dangerous through there, the 6 of us together should be enough to deal with it." Brambleclaw was impressed by Stormfur's sensible thinking. "Okay," he meowed, and the rest of the cats, even Crowpaw, murmured in their assent. "Brambleclaw, you give the word," Stormfur mewed. Once more, Brambleclaw strained to listen. A low growling in the distance quickly grew into a roar, and a monster leaped around the bend, its unnatural, shiny pelt gleaming as it swept past. It buffeted the cats with the hot, gritty wind and left them choking in the reek it left behind. Almost at once, another monster passed, going in the other direction. Then quiet fell again, heavy like a blanket of snow. When Brambleclaw pricked his ears, he could hear nothing but the distant barking of a dog. "Now!" he yowled. He sprang forwards, aware of Squirrelpaw keeping pace with him on one side and Feathertail on the other. His paws pattered on the hard surface of the Thunderpath. Then he reached the narrow strip of grass on the other side and was thrusting through the hedge, spiky branches snagging on his fur. Pushing hard, he burst into the open. For a moment, he could not make sense of what he saw, and almost froze in panic. He caught a glimpse of leaping flame. An acrid tang of smoke filled his throat. There was a high-pitched shout, and a two-legged kit came running toward him, not much taller than a fox, with thick, unsteady legs. The barking of a dog was suddenly much louder. "Squirrelpaw, stay with me," he gasped. But when he returned to look for her, the ginger apprentice had disappeared. He heard Stormfur yelling, "Stay together, over here!" Brambleclaw glanced around, but he could not see any of his companions, and his paws were carrying him into the depths of the holly bush, the closest refuge he could see. His belly brushing the earth, he crawled into shelter and felt himself pressing up against fur. He heard a frightened whimper. In the dim light, he made out a flecked gray pelt and recognized Feathertail. "It's only me," he murmured. "Brambleclaw!" Feathertail's voice was shaking. "For a moment, I thought it was that dog." "Have you seen the others?" Brambleclaw asked her. "Did you see where Squirrelpaw went?" Feathertail shook her head, her blue eyes wide with fear. "Don't worry, I'm sure they're fine," he mewed, giving her ear a comforting lick. "I'll see what's happening out there." He crept forward a couple of tailings until he could peer out. The fire, he realized thankfully, was only a heap of burning branches, confined to a small area not far from where he had broken in. A fully grown two-leg was feeding more branches to it. The two-leg kit had joined him. Brambleclaw could still hear the dog barking, but he could not see it, and the smoke prevented him from scenting it. More important, he could not see any of his missing companions. Wriggling back to Feathertail, he whispered, "Come on, follow me."
The two legs aren't paying any attention. What about the dog? I don't know where it is, but it isn't here. Listen, this is what we do. Brambleclaw knew that he had to come up with a plan right away to get Feathertail out of there before panic froze her completely. Their holly bush was growing close to a wooden fence, and a little further along the small tree stretched its branches into the next garden. Over there, he meowed, twitching his ears toward it. Climb the tree, then we can get to the top of the fence. We can go anywhere from there. He wondered briefly what he would do if Feathertail was so spooked that she refused to move. But the gray she-cat nodded determinedly. Now? She asked. Yes, I'll be right behind you. At once, Feathertail dived out of their refuge, raced along the bottom of the fence, and took a flying leap into the tree. Brambleclaw, harder on her paws, heard the two-legged kit shout again. Then he was clawing at the trunk, scrabbling hard until he reached the safety of a branch and the shelter of thick leaves. He caught Feathertail's scent and saw her blue eyes peering worriedly at him. Brambleclaw, she mewed. I think we found the dog. She twitched her whiskers to point down into the next garden. Brambleclaw peered out of the leaves and saw the dog, a huge brown brute, leaping up and scraping the fence with blunt claws and efforts to climb up and attack them. As Brambleclaw peered down, it let out a flurry of hysterical barking. Foxdom! Brambleclaw spat at it. He wondered what their chances would be of escaping along the top of the fence, but it was flimsier than the ones he had scaled at the edge of the ThunderClan territory, and the dog was shaking it so much that any cat trying to balance there was likely to be flung off into the garden. Brambleclaw imagined those teeth meeting in his leg or neck and decided they were better off staying put. I'll never find the others at this rate, Feathertail whimpered. Then Brambleclaw heard the door of the two-leg nest open. A full-grown two-leg stood there, shouting at the dog, still barking wildly. The creature kept up its attack on the fence. The two-leg shouted again and strode into the garden, grabbed the dog by its collar, and dragged it, protesting, into the nest. The door slammed shut. The barking continued for a moment longer, and then stopped. See? Brambleclaw meowed to Feathertail. Even two legs have their uses. Feathertail nodded, her eyes filled with relief. Brambleclaw slipped out of the tree to the top of the fence, and, balancing carefully, padded along it until he reached the hedge that gosh dang it. Need a second. He reached the hedge that bordered the Thunderpath. From here, he had a good view of the gardens on either side. Everything seemed quiet. I can't see or hear the others, Feathertail mewed as she joined him. No, but that could be a good sign, Brambleclaw pointed out. If the two legs had caught them, it'd be making such a racket we'd be bound to hearing them. He wasn't sure that was quite true, but it seemed to reassure Feathertail. What do you think we should do? She asked. The danger is inside these gardens, Brambleclaw decided. We'll be safer on the other side of the hedge, beside the Thunderpath. Monsters won't bother us if we stick to the verge. And once we get to the end of these two-legged nests, there won't be any more problems. But what about the others? That was the question Brambleclaw couldn't answer. It was impossible to look for the companions with dogs and two legs all around. Anxiety stabbed deep in his belly when he thought of Squirrelpaw alone and bewildered in this strange and frightening place. They'll probably do the same, he meowed, hoping he sounded convincing. Might even be waiting for us. If not, I'll come back and have a look after dark, and the two legs will be in their nests. Feathertail nodded tensely, and both cats jumped from the fence, landing lightly on their forepaws on short, bright green grass. They slipped back through the hedge and along the thunder path, keeping well away from its smooth, black surface. Monsters passed from time to time, but Bramaclaw was so worried about the missing cats that he hardly noticed the guttural roar and the rush of wind that had rocked him on his paws. Eventually, they came to the end of the hedge, the thunder path that curved away to join another one a little way ahead. Between the two was a wedge of open ground, almost covered by a tangle of hawthorn bushes. On the other side of the thunder path, fjord stretched away into the distance. The cold breeze ruffled the fur on Bramaclaw's flank as he gazed across the fields to where the sun was beginning to sink. "Thanks, Darklan," Feathertail breathed. Bramaclaw led the way into the bushes. They'd be safer there, and some of their friends might already be waiting, leaving Feathertail to keep a lookout. He plunged deeper, searching and calling out their names in a low voice. There was no reply, and he could not pick up any familiar scents. When he returned to Feathertail, she was sitting with her tail wrapped around her paws. A dead mouse lay beside her. "You want to share?" she mewed. "I caught it, but I don't really feel like eating right now." The sight of prey reminded Bramaclaw how hungry he was. He had eaten well that morning in Ravenpaw's barn, but they had traveled a long way since then. "Are you sure? I can catch one for myself." "No. Go on." She shoved the mouse towards him with one paw. "Thanks." Bramaclaw crouched beside her and took a bite, the warm flavors flooding his mouth. "Try not to worry," he mewed, as Feathertail bent her head to take a half-hearted mouthful. "I'm sure we'll meet up with the others soon." Feathertail stopped eating to give him an anxious look. "I hope so. Feels weird being without Stormfur. We've always been closer than most littermates. I suppose it comes from having a father in a different clan." Bramaclaw nodded, remembering how close he had felt to Tawnypelt when they were kids, as they struggled to make sense of their blood-stained heritage from their father, Tigerstar. "Of course, you'll understand that." Feathertail invited him, with a twitch of her ears, to take more of the mouse. "Yes," Bramaclaw replied. He shrugged. "But I don't miss my father as much as he must miss Greystripe. I wish I could honor his memory, but I can't." "That must be very hard." Feathertail pressed her muzzle against his shoulder. "At least, we see Greystripe at gatherings, and we were so proud when he was made clan deputy." "He's proud of you too," mewed Bramblekit, glad to leave the subject of his father behind. He took his remaining share of the mouse, and while Feathertail forced herself to finish hers, he began to plan what they should do next. Venturing out of the bushes, he could see the sun setting in rays of fire, blazing out the path they must take, but there was no hope of continuing until they had found the others. "They're not here," Feathertail murmured, padding up to him so that her breath was soft against his ear. "No. I'll have to go back. You stay here in case." A furious yowling interrupted him, the voices of angry, frightened cats, coming from the last garden in the row. Springing to his paws, he met Feathertail's startled glance. "There they are," he gasped, "and they're in trouble." That was the end of chapter 14. That has another two chapters. I'm going to take another quick break and then we will come back to the last chapter for the stream. So I'll be right back. I'm back. You guys ready for the last chapter? Chapter 15. Leafpaw opened her eyes to see fronds of fern above her head, outlined against a paling sky. At once, she remembered that this was the day of the half moon, when all medicine cats and their apprentices made the journey to Highstones to meet with StarClan at the mysterious moonstone. A shiver of excitement ran through her. She had traveled there only once before, when StarClan had received her as a medicine cat apprentice, and the experience would stay with her for the rest of her life. Leaping up from her comfortable mossy nest, she stretched and yawned. Blinking away the last traces of sleep, she could hear Cinderpelt moving around inside of her den. And a few moments later, the medicine cat poked her head out and scented the air. "No smell of rain," she meowed. "We should have a good journey." Without any more delay, she led the way out of the camp. Leafpaw cast a regretful look at the pile of fresh kill as they passed it. No cat who wanted to share tongues with StarClan was allowed to eat beforehand. Ashfur, who was on guard beside the entrance to the gorse tunnel, dipped his head as Leafpaw and her mentor went by. Leafpaw felt faintly embarrassed. She was conscious that she was still only an apprentice, and was not yet used to the honor with which warriors treated all medicine cats. Shadow still lay in the ravine under the trees, as Cinderpelt limped toward 4 trees, where she and Leafpaw would cross into WindClan territory. Faint rustlings in the undergrowth told them where prey was stirring, but the tiny creatures were safe from hunting for now. From time to time, a bird uttered an alarm call as the 2 cats passed by, no more than shadows themselves in the gray light. "Practice your scenting skills," Cinderpelt instructed Leafpaw after a while. "If you can find any useful herbs, we'll collect them on the way back." Leafpaw obeyed, concentrating as hard as she could, until they reached the stream. She and Cinderpelt crouched to lap at the water, and paddled along the bank until they reached the place where the rock midstream made it easier to cross. Leafpaw kept an eye on her mentor, worried that her injured leg would give her trouble. But Cinderpelt managed to jump with the ease of long practice. As they climbed the slope that led to 4 trees, Leafpaw began to pick up the scent of the other cats. "ShadowClan," she murmured. "That must be Little Cloud." Cinderpelt nodded. "He usually waits for me." Leafpaw knew that Cinderpelt had saved Little Cloud's life when sickness raged through ShadowClan. Because of that, Little Cloud had been chosen to follow the path of a medicine cat. And ever since, there had been a bond of friendship between him and Cinderpelt, beyond even the common loyalty shared by all medicine cats. When they reached the top of the hollow, Leafpaw spotted the ShadowClan medicine cat sitting at the base of the great rock. The small but dignified tabby figure was alone, as he had no apprentice. He leaped to his paws as soon as he saw them, calling out a greeting. At the same moment, the bushes further around the hollow rustled, and Mudfur from the River Clan stepped into the clearing with his apprentice, Mothwing. Leafpaw was pleased to see the River Clan apprentice. She bounded down the slope to join her, as Cinderpelt and the other 2 medicine cats met in the center of the clearing and began to exchange their news. "Mothwing," she meowed, "it's good to see you." The sun had risen fully above the trees, and Mothwing's golden fur glowed amber. Leafpaw thought again how beautiful she was, but she was disconcerted when her friendly greeting was not returned. Instead, Mothwing nodded coolly. "Greetings. I wondered if Cinderpelt would bring her apprentice." Something about the way she spoke made Leafpaw feel small, as if Mothwing were trying to put her in her place. Of course, Mothwing was already a warrior, so perhaps she expected respect and not friendship from an apprentice. Disappointment stabbed Leafpaw like a thorn. She dipped her head and fell back a pace to follow the other cats as they made their way up the side of the hollow, then crossed the border into WindClan territory. Her spirits rose again as they began to cross the moorland. The bright, early green leaf fall sunlight, the breeze ruffling the grass that felt springy under paws. The scents of gorse and heather were all so different from the lush, shady forest of ThunderClan. Seeing that Mothwing was padding behind her mentor without joining in the talk of the medicine cats, Leafpaw went over to join her. "I didn't think you would be here," she mewed. "I thought that Mudfur would have taken you to Mother Mouth already." Mothwing swung around to look at her full in the face, her amber eyes smoldering as if Leafpaw had said something to offend her. Leafpaw flinched. "I'm sorry," she began. Suddenly, Mothwing relaxed, and the hostile light died out of her eyes. "No, I'm sorry," she meowed. "It's not your fault. You heard what Mudfur said at the last gathering, about waiting for a sign from StarClan that it would be the right medicine cat for the clan." Leafpaw nodded. The sign didn't come. Mothwing paused and began to tug at the tough and moorland grass with the claws of one forepaw. "There was nothing. I thought that meant StarClan had rejected me, and the other cats were quick enough to start talking about it, just because my mother was a rogue. And I'm not clan-born." The fierce light shone briefly in her eyes again, and then faded. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," Leafpaw exclaimed, eyes wide with sympathy. "Mudfur just told me to be patient." Mothwing's lips twitched wryly. "You may be good at that, but I'm not. I tried, but still the sign didn't come. I was ready to leave the clan, but Hawkfrost, you remember my brother? Hawkfrost told me not to listen. He said I didn't have to prove my loyalty to jealous cats, only to StarClan, and he was sure they would send the sign eventually. And he was right," mewed Leafpaw, "or you wouldn't be here now." "Yes, he was right." Relief sparkled in Mothwing's eyes. It was only 2 dawns ago. Mudfur came out of his den and found a moth's wing at the entrance. He shouted to Leopardstar and all the other clan cats. He said you couldn't have a clearer sign than that. And as Leopardstar, Leafpaw was interrupted by the distant yowling and looked up. The 3 medicine cats had paused at the top of a distant rise and were looking toward the 2 of them. "Are you coming with us or not?" Mudfur's voice came faintly on the wind. Leafpaw exchanged a startled glance with Mothwing and let out a meow of laughter. The sign had been sent from the StarClan, so Mothwing could have nothing to worry about. The Moonstone awaited them both, ready to let them in on the mysteries of their warrior ancestors. At that moment, Leafpaw couldn't imagine anything better than being an apprentice medicine cat. "Come on," she mewed excitedly to her companion. "We're being left behind." At sun high, they met up with Barkface, the WindClan medicine cat, beside the source of one of the moorland streams. Leafpaw watched Barkface and Mudfur greet each other with a friendly meow, in spite of the tension between their clans over WindClan's determination to drink at the river until the next gathering. Usual clan rivalries did not exist between medicine cats. Their loyalty was to StarClan, which stretched across all forest boundaries. After a while, Leafpaw noticed that Cinderpot was beginning to limp badly, and guessed that her old injury was bothering her. But the ThunderClan medicine cat would never admit that the pace was too much for her. So Leafpaw decided to slow the cats down herself. "Can't we have a rest?" she begged, flopping down on the patch of soft heather. "I'm really tired." Cinderpelt gave her a keen glance, as if she guessed what Leafpaw was thinking, and then meowed agreement. "Apprentices," Barkface muttered. "No stamina." "He hasn't traveled as far as us," Mothwing whispered as she settled down beside Leafpaw. And he doesn't have an apprentice, so what does he know? He's not really unkind, Leafpaw murmured back. I think he just likes to sound grumpy. She lay one side and began to give herself a thorough wash, wanting to look her best when she stood before StarClan. Mothwing started to do the same, and then paused. Leafpaw, you test me, she begged. Test you? On what? Herbs. Mothwing's eyes were wide and anxious, in case Mudfur expects me to know all of them. I don't want to let him down. We use marigold to stop infection, and yarrow leaves to expel poison. But what's best for bellyache? I can never remember. Juniper berries, or chervil root, Leafpaw replied, mystified. Well, why are you getting so worked up? You can always ask your mentor. He won't expect you to know everything already. Not when I meet StarClan. Mothwing was almost wailing in distress. I have to show them that I'm fit to be a medicine cat. They might not accept me if I can't remember the things I ought to know. Leafpaw almost burst out laughing. It's not like that, she meowed patiently. StarClan won't ask you questions. Well, it's difficult to explain, but I'm sure you don't have anything to worry about. It's easy enough for you. To Leafpaw's surprise, there's a hint of bitterness in Mothwing's tone. You're born a forest cat. I have to be better than any other cat, just to be accepted in the clan. Her eyes were huge, shining with a mixture of anger and determination. Pity for her squeezed Leafpaw's heart, and she swept her tail around to touch Mothwing's shoulder. That might be true of RiverClan, she meowed, but it isn't true of StarClan. You don't earn StarClan's approval. They give it as a gift. Or they might not give it to me, Mothwing muttered. Leafpaw stared at her friend in amazement. She was so strong and beautiful. She had all of the warrior skills as well as the chance to learn those of a medicine cat, but she was still afraid that she would never belong in the forest. Moving closer to her, Leafpaw pressed her muzzle comfortingly into Mothwing's side. You'll be fine, she murmured. Look at Firestar. He's not clan-born, but now he's ThunderClan's leader. When Mothwing still looked uncertain, she added, Trust me, when you stand in front of the Moonstone, you'll understand everything. The sun was beginning to sink as the medicine cats approached the high stones. The rough moorland grass gave way to a steep slope of bare soil, with here and there a clump of heather. Outcrops of rock poked through it, blotched with yellow lichen. Barkface, who had taken the lead, paused on a flat rock and gazed upward. Just below the peak, a dark hole gaped in the hillside beneath the stone archway. There's Mother Mouth, Leafpaw explained to Mothwing, and then remembered that her friend would have seen it before, when she made her apprentice journey during her warrior training. Sorry, she added. I know this isn't your first time. Mothwing's eyes widened as she gazed up at the yawning gap. This is as far as I went, she replied. I wasn't chosen to go inside. It is frightening, I know, but it's wonderful too, Leafpaw reassured her. Mothwing drew herself up. I'm not afraid, she insisted. I'm a warrior. I'm not afraid of anything. Not even rejection by StarClan. Leafpaw didn't dare put words to her thought, but as she settled down beside her friend to wait for nightfall, she couldn't help noticing that Mothwing was trembling. At last, the half-moon floated above the peak, and Mudfur rose to his paws. It's time, he rasped. Leafpaw felt tension in her belly as she followed her mentor up the slope and underneath the stone archway. Cold, damp air flowed toward them, and it almost seemed as if the river of darkness flowed out too. blacker than the night that surrounded them. Leafpaw took her place at the back of the line of cats, just behind Mothwing. The tunnel sloped down, winding back and forth until Leafpaw lost all sense of direction. The air seemed thick, as if they were underwater as well as underground. She could see nothing, not even Mothwing padding no more than a rabbit hop in front of her. Though she could hear the RiverClan's cats' shallow breathing and smell the fear scent that came from her. At last, Leafpaw felt a cool ripple in the air around them, and her fur tingled with excitement as she recognized the first sign that they were coming to the heart of the hill. Fresh sense of the world above came faintly to her as she stepped into a large cavern. A glitter of starshine through a hole in the roof showed her soaring walls of stone, and underneath her paws the floor was smooth, well-worn stone. In the center of the cave stood a rock, 3 tail lengths high. Leafpaw's eyes widened in awe as she gazed at it, though as yet it was dark, a formidable sleeping presence. Mothwing's fur brushed her lightly. "Where are we?" she whispered. "What's happening?" "Mothwing, come before the moonstone," Barkface announced from further in the cavern. "We must all wait until the time comes to share tongues with StarClan." He and the other medicine cats sat around the stone, about a fox length from it. Leafpaw heard a shuddering sigh from her friend, and pressed reassuringly against the RiverClan apprentice's shoulder. "It's okay for us to sit too," she breathed into Mothwing's ear, as she took her place a tail length behind Cinderpelt. She felt Mothwing hesitantly sit down beside her. In the darkness, time stretched out until Leafpaw almost believed that they had been waiting there for seasons. Then, within a heartbeat, brilliant white light flashed into the cave as the moon appeared through the hole in the roof. She heard Mothwing gasp. The moonstone woke into a dazzling life in front of them, glittering in moonlight, as if the whole of Silverpelt had swirled down into its crystal surface. As Leafpaw's eyes became used to the brilliant light, she saw Mudfur rise to his paws, turn, and pace slowly across the cavern floor to stand in front of his apprentice. The white light flooded over his fur, so that he looked as if he were covered in ice. "Mothwing," meowed solemnly, "it is your wish to enter into the mysteries of StarClan as a medicine cat?" Mothwing hesitated. Leafpaw saw her shallow. Before she replied, "It is. And come forward." Mothwing rose and followed her mentor back across the cavern until both cats stood close to the stone. In its light, Mothwing looked unearthly, her golden fur pale as ash, and a glint of silver in her eyes, almost as if she had already joined the ranks of StarClan. Leafpaw shivered. That could not be a good thought. She pushed it out of her mind, reluctant to believe that it might be an omen. "Warriors of StarClan," Mudfur continued, "I present to you this apprentice. She has chosen the path of a medicine cat. Grant her your wisdom and insight so that she may understand your ways and heal her clan in accordance with your will." He waved his tail and spoke to Mothwing. "Lie down here and press your nose against a stone." As if she moved in a dream, Mothwing obeyed. Once she was settled, all the medicine cats moved forward to lie in the same position around the moonstone, and Cinderpelt gestured to Leafpaw to join them. Her fur crawled with anticipation. She knew what was about to happen. It is time to share tongues with StarClan, Barkface murmured. Speak with us, warrior ancestors, Little Cloud meowed. Show us the destiny of our clans. Leafpaw closed her eyes and pressed her nose against the surface of the stone. At once, the cold gripped her body like the talon of a hawk, or as if she'd fallen headlong into dark water. She couldn't see or hear anything, or feel the stone floor of the cavern underneath her. She was floating in a dark night without even the light of Silverpelt. Then a series of rapid scenes began to flash across her vision. She saw 4 trees, but the great trees were bare, with only a few ragged leaves still clinging to the branches. One of the trees was shaking back and forth, more violently than in the strongest wind, while the others stood still around it. Almost at once, the picture was replaced with a view of monsters speeding by on the thunderpath, and a long line of cats trekking through the snow, a dark line against the endless white landscape. There were no trees here, and nothing to suggest that it was anywhere in the 4 territories. The last scene of all showed her Squirrelpaw, and though Leafpaw knew she was forbidden to speak, she could barely hold back a cry of relief and delight. Her sister was trotting over a broad green field, and Leafpaw had the impression of several other cats with her before the vision was gone, and she was left in darkness once more. Gradually, the cold stone beneath her seeped back into her fur, and the endless space inside the dreams of StarClan dwindled to the ordinary freshness of the night in Leafall. Leafpaw opened her eyes, blinking, and drew away from the moonstone, before shakily raising to her paws. She felt oddly comforted, as though she were a kit again, protected by her mother while she slept. StarClan had preserved her link with Squirrelpaw, even though they were so far apart. The other medicine cats were getting to their paws around her, ready to return to the surface. Mothwing stood among them, her eyes blazing with a mixture of triumph and wonder at the things StarClan had shown her. Leafpaw felt a sharp pang of relief as she realized that their warrior ancestors must have accepted Mothwing. Whatever she felt about her clanmates, the River Clan cat didn't have to doubt StarClan's approval anymore. Mudfur touched Mothwing's mouth with his tail tip, a sign for silence, and led the way out of the cavern. Once again, Leafpaw brought up the rear, padding along the twisting underground tunnel, back toward the everyday world. As soon as they reached the entrance, Mothwing leaped to the top of the jutting spur of rock. She flung her head and let out a yowl of pure triumph. Mudfur watched her, shaking his head indulgently. Not so bad after all, then, was it? Well, he went on as Mothwing sprang down to his side again. You're a true medicine cat apprentice now. How does it feel? Wonderful, Mothwing replied. I saw Hawkfrost leading a patrol, and she broke off as Leafpaw widened her eyes at her, trying to signal that medicine cats did not share their dreams until they had some idea of what they meant. Leafpaw padded over and touched noses with the River Clan apprentice. Congratulations, she murmured. I told you it would be all right. Yes, you did. Mothwing's eyes shone. Everything would be all right now. River Clan will hear that StarClan approve of me. They'll have to accept me now. She bounded off down the slope, leaving the others to follow more slowly. Leafpaw watched her with her heart full of questions. What had Mothwing seen? What visions had StarClan sent to Cinderpelt? The ThunderClan medicine cat was looking thoughtful, but her expression gave nothing away. Suppressing a shiver, Leafpaw remembered her own visions. What was powerful enough to shake one of the great oaks at Four Trees? And why were cats traveling in the bitter cold of Leaf Bear? If StarClan had sent her signs of the future and what it would bring, how was she supposed to interpret them? Yet, for all her uncertainty, Leafpaw was full of hope. Even though Squirrelpaw was a long way from the forest, StarClan had shown her that she was safe. Send her back soon. Leafpaw prayed as she followed the other cats down the hill. Wherever this journey leads them, please bring them safely home. That was the end of chapter 15, and that was the final chapter for this stream. I hope you enjoyed the chapter readings, and for those of you that have followed, thank you for joining us here. If you are new, there is a Discord, and I am going to let you know everyone there is absolutely crazy and love to mess with you and talk your ear off. So if you join, well, yeah, that's a heads up. Other than that, let me see if I can actually raid anyone, if I have anyone to raid on my follow list. Oh, look, there's a Wampus. I haven't seen a Wampus in a while. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm totally gonna raid a Wampus. Let's see. If Wampus is still alive anyway. Yep. Let me open the tab before I even attempt this, so I can have it ready. Okay. And start raid. There we go. And you guys don't have to say anything. I'm just gonna go ahead and raid without a message, but thank you guys for joining me. And I will see you guys next Friday with another 5 chapters, hopefully. And I will catch you guys later. Bye bye.